Hello, Donna here. Welcome to my channel. Now today we're going to be making a feather cane. And here it is. You can see it. Now, I did not start this feather journey intending to make this particular cane. I actually wanted to make a feather with a shadow, set in white. Well, I actually made it and it was really wildly unsuccessful. And let me tell you why. The shadow is so dark, it competes with the actual feather cane, doesn't it? I mean, what are you supposed to look at? You have this very dark gray shadow, this dark gray feather shape, and then you have a detailed feather on top. Just doesn't work at all. This does not read as a shadow. It just reads as a competing element that, and not a very attractive one. So I took it to the bitter end anyway, because I got that far. And then I proceeded to make really ugly little beads. I mean, that looks like a paddle. So I will keep these ugly little beads because they are a lesson for me. Don't do this again. Then I decided I would try again. And I made, let me get the actual cane. I made this cane. It's so long. Let me cut the end off and show you. Then I made this. And it is more successful. There's a cane, feather cane that I made with the leftovers from this cane. Then I made a little shadow, and this is a more successful shadow. I actually went to Google and I looked at pictures, which I did not do when I made this ugly cane. So it helped. But, you know, there's absolutely no contrast. Well, there is contrast, but it's minimal. I still think it works. These are the beads I made with that cane. And I'm not sure exactly it reads as a shadow, but I like it. At least it reads as another feather. Maybe a feather farther in the distance. But, you know, I actually like this cane very much. Then I decided to make this one because I wanted to increase the contrast. So that's what we're going to make today. We're going to make this little feather and it's going to be set in a black field. All right, so let's begin. First of all, I've got these three colors. These two, the white and this sort of ashy blue. These are the feather colors. And then this is actually a mix-up of a lot of the scraps I've been using. You see there's gold in this cane, the gold wrap around, and so it's white and this color and a whole bunch of other colors mixed together. But I think it will be a fine quill color. Okay, so I'm going to cut here and I will be back shortly. Okay, welcome back. I cut a lot to make each of the parts in the class a little shorter because it's difficult if they get too long. Now we're going to set up a basic 2-part Skinner blend out of these 2 pieces of clay. And this is plenty of clay for my feather. So first I'm going to, in my traditional way, take a corner, fold it over. Then I'm going to do the same thing with the white. And you can see, you know, the clay's pretty soft. I made it soft because the feather itself sits dead center kind of in the black clay. And so I want it softer so that when I reduce it, hopefully that will help pull the feather out from the center of the clay. All right, one on top of the other. Now I'm going to make those 2 cuts that form a right angle. There's cut number 1. And the second cut forms that 90-degree angle here. All right, separate them, put them together to form a square. Whoop. I was not forming a square. You know, I love doing these videos. What I do not like is dealing with my nails, and that's, I had to do my nails before I could do this, and it's kind of a pain. All right, but if I don't do them, it's distracting. And then the whole tutorial becomes about, why didn't she do her nails? Okay, so I did my nails. All right, so I'm going to take this and I'm placing a 2-color edge on the roller of my pasta machine. By the way, this clay was rolled through setting number 0 on my atlas, which is the thickest. And so this represents 2 times 0. All right, so let's roll it through. 1 time. Ta-da. Now I'm going to fold it. Place the fold on the rollers and roll through. That was 1 time. Now I'm going to fold it a 2nd time. Place the fold on the rollers and roll through. 2. 3. 4. 5. All right, so there we go. 5 times. I folded and I rolled through the pasta machine on the thickest setting. Now I'm going to roll it up sideways. You do not roll from here to here. You roll sideways. So I am actually rolling the blended edge back on itself. And I'm going to shorten it a bit. I'm going to try to keep my hands in the center of the screen. I think I've mentioned in other videos that I work in a most peculiar way. I work with a gray cat behind my back, and he will not move. So I'm perched on the edge of my chair with a cat at my rear end. This might be easier if I kicked him off the chair. Okay. All right. Now I'm going to cut this in half this way. And this becomes the darker piece, and this is the lighter piece. So what we're doing is we're creating 2 strips, long strips of clay that contain a sort of a Skinner blend. Okay, so this kind of looks like a clam. You just shut the top. You put the piece on one of its flat sides, boink, and then you pinch the top. Then you roll it, and you pinch the other side. Now, I came up with this cane, oh my gosh, a long time ago. Maybe 10, more than 10 years ago, because I think I put it in my book, my cane book, which was, I believe, published 2007. So this is not a new cane, but it's one that I like very much. All right, so there's piece number 1. And it's important that you maintain this, you see, well, on one side, because as we roll it out, if this is not apparent, this line is not apparent, then it twists and you don't know which side is up. All right, 1. Now let's do the other. Now, I only rolled it 5 times because this is going to be reduced so small that it doesn't make much sense to actually reduce it further. That's just extra work. Okay, so here we go. There's the second piece. And you know what? I'm just going to cut off the end to show you what it looks like. You see? Now, when this is reduced very tiny, this becomes a blend because there's less of this darker blue color and more as it goes toward this end. So this will be dark and this will be light. Let's do the same thing here. And I will show you what this looks like on this end. So, this is the dark side. Then this is the light side. So actually, it goes more like this. Okay. Now, I'm going to wrap this with black. And it should be interesting because I think by wrapping with black, all of these little lines will appear to be more like separations in the feather. Now, I think I'm going to like it. I won't know until I actually see it. But we're going to wrap in black. And I think we'll have a feather that has a more airy appearance. Okay, so let me take black. Whoops. Oopsie. And this is black, of course, from my wax. With the blackout, I love that stuff. I absolutely love it. Okay, so this is way too much because I'm going to make it very thin. Setting number 2. Setting number 4, 5, well, actually this is 6. Setting number 6. Excellent. Okay. Now, one thing about the blackout is that it does make the clay softer. And so sometimes when you roll through, you get this kind of light rippling effect. Well, you can minimize that if you maintain pressure above the rollers. So as you roll through, you're sort of gently stretching it, and you get less rippling. Now, in this situation, it doesn't really matter. It really doesn't matter. Now, there's that line I've got to always be aware of. And I'm going to wrap around. And I'm going to cut leaving a space like so. Now that may look like a big space. It's not going to matter once we put the cane together. All right, let's repeat. Do this again. Start with a nice straight line. And as I wrap, I'm just gently stretching too, because I think it helps push air pockets out. When you're working with clay that's thin, it's quite easy to introduce air pockets between that thin sheet and what you're wrapping. So now that's even bigger. Maybe that's a little bigger than I want, so I'm just going to push that clay wrap and close the opening just a bit. Not that much, because as I roll it out, of course, it's going to close further. I'm going to set this aside because we're going to be wrapping the quill in black as well. Actually, I guess I could wrap the quill. I could wrap the quill in gold, and that, I have to think about it. All right, so let's reduce this out. And I'm going to reduce it out quite thin. I'm not really concerned with the waste at the ends that much. It's not worth the time to try to make sure that I have no waste in this. Okay. Okay, so this is about the thickness that I roll, and let me measure this. So you can see, oopsie. So it's about almost 3/8, maybe 5/16. It's approximate. All right, now along the length, I'm going to pinch on both sides of that reference line, like so. Now, this is a really important step because I will be feeding this through the pasta machine, and if I don't do it, this will just twist and it'll flatten any which way. And what I really want is I want to keep that sort of Skinner blend we've got going in there in the proper alignment. And that means that it cannot twist. Okay, good deal. All right, I'm resetting my pasta machine to the thickest setting, and I'm going to roll it through, feeding this right on the rollers, so it will go through like this. This is on the rollers, and it gets fed through like this. have a lot of it now. But I'm going to have even more because I'm going to roll it through an even thinner setting. So that's what this looks like inside. Actually, no, I think I'm going to roll it thinner. So I'm going to go down through setting number 1. So it's just a bit thinner. Okay, so if you do this, you have to have a space to lay all of this ribbon of clay where it won't get destroyed and it won't stick to other clay. And in my usual fashion, I did not prepare that space. So I'm just going to carefully drape it over a bunch of stuff over here. All right, so there's one. Now, I will repeat the process with this piece, but you don't have to watch me. So, I will be back. I'm back. All right, this time I did something a little bit different. I cut off a larger diameter piece. So I've got the tiny one and the large one, because I think I'm going to try to make the lower parts of the feather a little bit longer. Let's see what happens. All right, so I'm going to continue. And this piece is the same diameter as the first. Okay, you don't have to watch me do this. You've seen me once already. So I'll be back again. All right, these are basically the components that we'll work with. This is the light, this is the darker side, and then this is a larger, wider piece that I made from the larger diameter. So I just cut off a piece. This is how much I've got of that. That's all. Now, even though we only have these 3 pieces, we actually use them in a way as if we had 6, because particularly this piece can be turned light to dark. Sometimes you assemble it with the dark down and the light up. You'll see. Okay, so I'm starting with the light, and I'm going to cut and make this 4 inches. Okay, so that's the first piece. Now, the way this comes together is that you take the next piece and you actually position it on the first, but you butt the base together. You don't, like so. And let me cut a piece and show you what it should look like from the side at this point. You can see the base of this one is right up against the end of that first piece. If you relax it too much, it turns into this. All right, I'm not saying that's wrong, but that's what will happen. It's not exactly the same kind of look. So I always concentrate and try very hard to get this edge up against this edge. Like so. Okay, I think that should be clear. Then cut. And then push this edge right up against your work surface. Now, one thing about the wrap, when you're wrapping around, it's really helpful to have very soft clay. Okay, so this time I'm going to take and I'm going to put the light edge down against my work surface at the base of the feather. This may seem a little fussy at this point, all this concentration on this, but it makes another step a little bit easier. So, all right, now I want a split right there, a wider split, kind of like this. So to make that, I'm just going to take a sheet of my background color, and I don't want it to be a very wide split at this point, so this is rolled through setting number 2. If I had rolled it through the thickest setting of the pasta machine and I put it in, it would split quite a bit more. All right, I'm going to take and angle my blade and cut to my work surface, like so. Soften that edge a bit. And now let's take and position this piece, not completely at the base, a little bit up from it. And I'm just going to cut the excess away because I cannot see. And I cut carefully because I don't want to cut all the way through the cane. Okay, now this is what I've done. I've just inserted this area of black. You can see it doesn't go all the way to the base. Once again, that's not a rule, it's just that that's what I did. This time I'm taking the dark and putting it at the base. Now, when you do this, I have to confess, I don't think a lot about it. I just flip them back and forth. Okay. Now, at this point, I'm going to take my little brass rod and I'm going to kind of gently pull the top over like this so that this particular piece is a little more pointed in appearance rather than blunt. Okay, let's do that again. Now I am mirror imaging this feather. In other words, this is going to be cut in half and the two halves are going to be brought together. So if you wanted to make a feather where the patterning, the splits in the pattern are different, you see this is a mirror image. Exactly where there's a split on this side, there's a split on this side. So you could build two separate halves and put them together if you wanted a little more variation in the actual pattern from one side to the other. Okay, let's put one more in. And then I'm going to insert another split. and I'll stick with the same setting number 2. Make that steep cut, not steep, shallow cut, actually. This time I'm going to take the black and put it all the way to the base. Once again, you know, it's a very random process, so you don't have to do exactly what I'm doing. You may find that you want to do things a little differently, and you know what? That's fine. I think this is a very forgiving cane. Okay, let's see what we have now. I can't keep cutting pieces. We'll have no cane at the end. All right, so there's the split again. All right, now I'm going to go to the second color. You know, I kind of forgot I even had this. That's terrible. That is terrible. Okay, so let's insert some of this darker pattern. You know what? I'm going to measure this out, and I want this more pointy. And this action does soften it and changes it from a blunt edge, but it doesn't make it pointy. So I'll just roll along one edge with my little brass rod. Now, as you build, you may find that you lose the angle. You start to lose, actually, see how it's becoming much more vertical here? So I'm going to push it this way, like this, so that I restore an angle so I can finish building my cane. Now I'm going to take another dark piece. Let's see, do I want that? Yep. Now, one thing about this particular Skinner blend I made, there isn't that much contrast between these colors. So if I make this again using these colors, I'm going to make the light half bigger. In other words, at that first point where I split it, remember when I split it into the dark and the light before I rolled the cylinders? And I'll show you why because there's so little contrast between the two sides, you see. And if I had more white, I would have more contrast. Now, of course, the other half would have less, even less of the blue, but I still think it might be better because the base of this feather is going to be primarily that blue color. And maybe the first time you make this cane, you might actually consider using colors with a great deal more contrast than I have chosen. Okay, I am going to put another little wedge in. Okay, so that's not bad. If I keep cutting, I won't have any cane left to build with, but that's okay. All right, so let's insert the long one. We're kind of at the end of the cane build. It's not going to be a long, skinny feather. It's going to be a rather short, sturdy feather. Okay, now, I think I want this one, and I'm going to pick up the whole thing. I think I want this piece to kind of go off in another direction, like so. So I have to build clay into this space, and then I have to build clay around this side. So building up this space is just a matter of taking another tapering piece of clay. This time it's going to be thicker. So this has been rolled through the thickest setting of my pasta machine. And it still might not be quite, oops, I got something in it. I think I know what. So I have to take a fresh piece of black clay. Okay, well, let's try it. I have a feeling that this sheet is too thin. Yeah, that's a better strategy. Bend it back and insert another piece. To fill that gap. Okay, let me take a look. Okay, I think that's going to work. Now I will fill this space in here. Then I'm going to put another long piece here, but I want it separated. So I'll show you that part and then break. Okay, now this is where I have to do some careful cutting. I have to cut all the way down there. Maybe I did it backwards. Let me take it off, because I think I did. Yep, I did it backwards. All right. Silly me. Okay, better. I fixed it. I fixed it. Okay. Now let's take another long piece. Just use my fingers this time. Ooh, is that a shorty? Huh. No, this is a long one. Okay, I'm just going to use this one. Where did that long piece go? Well, okay. It's okay. Actually, that long piece might be this. So be careful. Okay, so there's my feather. I'm going to stop here and prepare for the next part. But, yeah, there we are. Back again. Now, the next step is actually to smooth all of this here on the inside. Now, I don't know if you can see it, but it's very lumpy. Like that. So what I do is I take something like my brass tube, and I just try to roll this surface smooth. Because if you don't do this, then where the quill meets the sides of the feather, you get kind of a lumpy line. Now, some of that can't be avoided, but if you do this, you start to minimize that. And that's actually not too bad. Sometimes you can take the tool and just stroke up and down lightly. And that starts to close those gaps as well. Okay, that's pretty good. I'm just going to live with that. Now I'm going to cut it in half. Get a ruler out. Cut it in half. Now, I'm going to prepare the quill at this point. Okay, but I need one piece of that light one. One little piece of that light one. This is good. And this becomes the very center of the feather at the top of the quill. Okay, so now I've got my two sides, one with the additional piece. All right, this is my quill color, and it seems a little bit stiffer, but it warms up nicely, quickly. So I'm gonna go with it. I've rolled it into a cylinder, and I'm going to wrap it with black that I've rolled through setting number 6 on my pasta machine. Now, ideally, this black should probably be the same thickness as the black in the feather, like, oops, right there. I was like, where's my feather? But there's no way for me to actually get there because this has been greatly reduced. It started out as 6. It got greatly reduced. This is starting out at 6. It will also be greatly reduced. But I can't be certain that the black lines will be exactly the same. All right, take that, set that aside. All right, now the quill, what I'm going to do with the quill is just flatten it. I have to move this further out. and roll it through the pasta machine. And this is enough quill for several feathers. Back to the thickest setting of the pasta machine. I'm going to put this edge on the pasta machine and roll it through. Wow, what is all that? You know what it is? The quill color is actually stiffer than the black. So when I forced it through that opening that was thin, too thin for the slab, that's what happened. It kind of broke in spots. Now, it's not very important for this particular application, so we're just going to go with it. But that's something to bear in mind. I just decided that I would just roll it through, even though I knew it was too thick. And I could have avoided those little spots if I had rolled it through, let's say, 1, and then 2, and 3, and worked my way. What am I talking about? I'm only doing setting 1. Sorry, it's very early in the morning. What I could have done was actually, when it was a bullseye and I was flattening it, I should have flattened it further, so it was closer to setting number 1. Forgive me. All right. So now I'm going to take the one with the extra center piece. And this is what the quill looks like at this point. You see? I'm going to take and line up the edge of the quill to the base of that extra piece. It is, by the way, very early in the morning. I was never an early riser, but I am now. Okay, good deal. But I see a little issue here. I'm going to take this off because the black at the tip was pushing the quill color down. See? I lined up the clay, but the quill itself was then lining up to another part of the feather. And what I really want is I want that quill to line up to the base of that extra piece. That's better. Now let's take the other half, align it, both sides. This side got so much smaller. I'm going to stretch it out. Isn't that funny? It really did get smaller. Well, this stuff happens. And maybe it's not bad, because the two sides will look a little more different. All right. So that, in a nutshell, is the feather. And I like it. Now, we'll continue packing, but before we do that, we're going to take and trim some of this excess packed clay away. You just stand it up and very carefully cut it away. It's not a race, so you don't have to go fast. As a matter of fact, if you go slow, you cut with greater accuracy. If you have pieces like this, put them somewhere so they don't get all mixed in with your nice clay. Because they will. We saw that. So I'll cut from both sides. Okay. So let's pack the base of the feather. I used to pack with a lot more sheets than I do now. I pack a lot of my canes with wedges, with wedgies. Because it's faster and it actually gives me a better result. So I'm going to take my wedgie and insert it right in and push it up. Now, I'd like the stem to curve a bit. So let me just pull the outside of the wedge toward me. Like so. It's not curving very much. I think I can make it curve more. Okay, that's pretty good. Don't know if I'm going to leave the quill this long. I may shorten it. All right, so let's take another wedge and fill this space. Wrong shape. So I think I'm just going to take a bigger wedge and I'm going to cut some of this away. So I'll just create the curve by first cutting some and trying to create the proper curve by removing some of the clay in the wedge. That's not bad, but I think I can make it curve more. Let me just roll it. to shorten the quill. Now these blacks are different. You might be able to detect that. I don't really mind so much because I'm hoping it doesn't make much difference. Okay, so there is the feather. Now I'm going to take this tip and I'm going to push it down a little farther. And I think the best way to do that is actually to cut a bit of this out, create space, and then push it down. Oops. Now let's pull this tip up. By cutting a bit out and creating a space, to move the clay. Cut along there. So even though I didn't pack it that way, I can still make adjustments by removing clay in some spots, maybe even adding. For instance, if I want this to go down, then I will simply pull it to where I want it to be. And it seems to have gone way back in there. So it's going to be different on this side. Can't really do much about it. That's okay. Make a steeper angle and feed it in. All right, so I'm going to continue packing, and you know, it's the packing process. I'm not going to make you watch because you saw how I pack these finer areas. So it's just a matter of building around and making a square. Okay, I'll be back. Well, the cane is packed, and I think you might be able to see these lines around? Well, those are from the great big cylinder that I had rolled. So I cut it in half. I stuck it here, cut it away. And then ultimately, to make the cane square, which is what I wanted, I added 2 sheets, one to this side, one to this side. I also shortened the stem because I didn't want all of this black clay. And in order for me to make it square with a longer stem, well, that's a lot more clay around. So I trimmed it. I didn't think it was that important. Now I'm ready to reduce it. And the outside clay is very soft, and the inside, you know, it's had a chance to gel up a little. So the way I will start this is by taking my palm and pushing and rotating, then going to the other side, pushing, rotating. So I'm actually pushing the center down. And I'm just trying to activate the clay. I'm trying to get it moving. So, of course, I'll do it on all sides. And it's really too short to start twisting and torquing the clay, so I have to really get it moving first before I can add any length to the cane itself. But this really helps. It really helps get that center moving just by pressing with your palm like this. So the process really is making the cane shorter and then lengthening it, making it shorter to pull the center out. This is actually making it shorter, like so. But then when I push on the sides, I'm starting to give it some length again. I did try to make the feather clay a bit softer so that it would move a bit faster. All right, that's good. Now I'm taking the heel of my hands and I'm actually pushing the base like this. So I just pushed in at these points. But as I'm pushing, I'm also applying pressure down to the work surface. And when I do this, I'm trying to get that center clay right there on my work surface. I want it to stick to my work surface. And that's pretty good. You see, this part is pulling back a bit right here, but the actual feather itself seems to be coming up nicely. So let's do it on this side. So this cane is reducing pretty well, which says to me that the softness of the feather and the softness of the clay that I'm pushing against is just perfect. The clay on the outside seems to be just hard enough to take the pressure that I'm applying without totally turning to goop. If your packing clay is too soft, what will happen is it just starts moving all over the place and it doesn't apply pressure to the clay in the middle. And that's what I'm trying to do, is apply pressure to the feather that sits in the middle of this block of clay. So I have found that the clay to pack a cane should be somewhat harder than the clay in the middle. Now, it feels to me like the feather is still a little tough in there. You know, when I press, I can feel the actual feather clay. It's not just giving. But as long as I'm getting these ends like this, and they're not pulling way back into that packing clay, this is good. And I really think the suction from my work surface on the face of the cane is also really helping pull this clay out. And if it's not pulling it out, what it's doing is it's preventing it from pulling into the clay. And now, taking the heels of my hand, pushing against the bottom, and then rolling my palms up to the top. Turn it over, repeat. At this point, I can start working the sides just a little bit more. Now, reducing is one of those things that takes, it takes a certain amount of strength, you know, and so as you work, you always have to be aware of how much effort you're exerting and on what part of your body. Because you can do damage if you pound too hard, like this. I was just pounding like that. Well, as I'm hitting the clay, I can feel that the shock going back up into my arms. That's not good. This is a better motion to use. Much, much less stressful on my body. You know, I'm not getting any younger. I can't be wearing parts out. So you young folks, just be aware, because you can do damage. I have seen it. You can see the center is soft at the ends. This is really nice. This side is a little stiffer, but not too bad. It's responding. So what happens is once the clay is nice and soft, it just responds to the pressure in such a nice way. And that's when you can pull and stretch it, which is really the best way to reduce once you get it to that point. All right. Let's smooth the sides. Refine our corners. And we can start flexing and twisting. And the center is feeling a lot softer and more fluid. Okay, now you will always have waste. Always. But you can minimize the amount of waste you have. The worst thing you can do is start pulling a cane out before the clay is ready on the inside. And I'm stretching the center. I think you can see that. This even helps. Push it back in, push it in, pull it out, push, push, push. Now, as you reduce, it's a good idea to reserve a bit of your cane or some of your cane in its big state and not reduce the whole thing. You know, it's tempting to reduce the whole thing because it's easier, right? You don't have to, once you get this cane moving, then you can just, it all happens quite quickly. But it's better to have some of your cane in its large state. You can always reduce it later. Okay, let me cut some off and I'll save it for later. And there's our cane. And this I will continue to reduce. I'm not sure I have to keep showing you, but we'll just keep going. I'll go to 20 minutes. That's where I'll go. As I said, when the parts get so long, well, they take, where I live, it takes a long time to upload. I don't have the most reliable internet in the mountains, so I will cut at 20 and show you at the end. Yeah, it definitely helps at some point, like this size, it's about 1 inch. Now I start plugging the ends like so. And then letting the rest of it catch up. I see an air bubble somewhere. There it is. If you see an air bubble, just take a needle and pierce it. Okay, it's past 20 minutes, but I think I'm just going to keep going. Okay. Because this is where you start stretching. Woohoo! Woo-hoo! So I'm actually pulling with my left hand, pulling left, and with my right hand, I'm stroking and pushing and pulling to the right. where we are. And there's our reduced feather. That's a sweet little feather. And I think it'll make nice little beads. Okay, so that is this tutorial on making a feather cane, packing it, and preparing it to make beads. Now, if you don't know how to make the beads, I suggest you watch the square canes, round beads tutorial, and that will help you make perfect little feather beads that are perfectly spaced with no gaps, like these. Okay, so thank you for tuning in to my channel. And if you liked it, please hit like. And if you like watching the tutorials, please hit subscribe. So until next time, bye.